In order to become bigger and stronger and create greater glory, a small workshop in Pakistan directly hand-rolled 3 motors. Although the overall manufacturing process is relatively backward, fortunately, all of them are made of real materials. First, the electric motor is made. The master will pour the shaving yarn into the large mold and use the 36 large angle to tamp it. Then put the sandbox outer grid on the outside and pour the shaving yarn inside. Through repeated tamping and rolling, the shaving yarn can be shaped to avoid air holes in the shaving yarn. In this process, the master needs to strictly carry out each step. The experienced master is skilled in operation. At this time, the lower sandbox is finally made. The surface is flattened and a layer of mold release agent is sprinkled on it. Then the lower sandbox can be prepared. The master will dig out the drainage hole for the molten iron in the middle position. The middle position will also install an iron pipe for support. After the drainage hole is processed, the sandbox shell can be installed. Fill the upper yarn inside and perform a detailed tamping process evenly. All the yarns inside the sandbox are filled. The master can take out the internal motor housing mold before this, then install the 2 special handles in place. The master can successfully remove the mold with even force. In the workshop on the other side, the masters are heating the iron blocks used to glue the sandbox. After heating to more than 1000 degrees of molten iron, in order to facilitate gluing, they will use this special material to make the glue barrel. The molten iron is gradually added to the inside of the sandbox. After the molten iron gradually cools down, the sand dropping process can be carried out. The outer part of the motor, made by the turning yarn, is a blank. The masters need to use the lathe for detailed processing. Because the iron core needs to be installed inside the motor later, the master needs to process it to the standard size. This process is relatively simple. After the experienced master has done some extremely white-faced operations, the interior has been processed. After testing with a special chuck mold, there is no problem. Then you can process these accessories for splicing the motor. The master only. The upper covers on both sides have been processed very quickly. Because the inside of the iron core is still full of rust, in order to improve the overall conductivity of the motor, the master needs to use a staggered knife for detailed grinding. During this period, the master on one side will first cut it into large strips and then use a special cutting device to gradually cut the insulating paper into small pieces, which can then be inserted and installed in the groove inside the iron core. The master on the other side is manually. The coil inside the motor is wound. The master will strictly follow the specifications to wind it first and then gradually install it inside the iron core in order. This operation process requires a high level of proficiency from the master. The complex parameters can be roughly 5 stars. After all the coils are installed, the insulation value can be installed between the coils. In order to ensure firmness, the outside needs to be wrapped and fixed with a bandage. The joints on the other side need to be combed first. In order to prevent the joints from loosening directly, they need to be welded with an electric iron. After ensuring that there are no problems, the bandage can be used for reinforcement. At this time, the master is gluing the insulating paint to improve the internal insulation capacity. After the coils are assembled, the front cover can be installed. After installing the rotor, the main body of the motor is quickly assembled. The master only needs to use professional crimping pliers to firmly fix the power supply terminal of the motor. The power source tests the operation of the motor to see that there is no problem with the entire operation. Then the motor only needs to be sprayed with bright paint. What do you think of the large motors made by the masters? If there are 10 points, how many points would you give?